The Philadelphia experiment, an event that is key in our history. Why? A legend about an entire ship being moved in space-time. But is this just a legend, or is it becoming one because the government is hiding it from us? What are the consequences and what is the different point of view? The Philadelphia experiment, or officially known as Project Rainbow, was a top-secret attempt by the military to make a warship invisible. Invisible to radar, though. The year is 1943, right in the middle of World War II. Now, the experiment we're assuming you've at least heard about involves the battleship Eldridge. According to Bob Frizzle, the technology that the military received for the experiment was from the Grey Aliens, and their idea was that the US wanted to win the war with it. Project Rainbow is the forerunner of today's stealth technology, as the plan was to create an electromagnetic battle that effectively deflects radar waves from the ship. However, while the goal is for the ship Eldridge to disappear only from the radar range, the experiment goes in a completely unexpected and sideways direction. It becomes invisible to everyone and temporarily disappears from space-time. The experiment was developed by Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein, with Tesla himself in charge at the beginning. He insisted that the experiment be carried out without the crew, but his proposal was not accepted and he ended his participation and was replaced by Dr. John von Neumann. What the assigned team does is to trigger fields that spin counterclockwise, along with a few more steps involving the speed of light to go from one dimension to another, or in another reality. What is seen is a red mist around the traveler, and the colors are constantly changing from red to orange, yellow, green, blue, which is why it's called Project Rainbow. But when the colors start to flow into each other, the researchers panic and try to turn it off, only to make the situation worse, and the ship crashes interdimensionally or disappears for a bit from our space-time. The Eldridge disappeared from the Philadelphia Navy Yard for about 4 hours, and the ship also appeared in passages due to space-time, and when it returned, it was transparent. When it returns, the results are shocking. Humans had left the physical universe and there was no known environment around to connect it to. On their return to port, some passengers were stuck in the bulkheads of the ship itself. Some burned, some materialized and dematerialized, and some never returned at all. Those who survived were mentally disoriented and terrified. The interesting thing is that none of this became purposeful, because back then, the concept of teleportation was not known to our scientists. After spending considerable time in rehabilitation, the crew was subsequently released as mentally unfit. The diagnosis, mentally unfit, proved very convenient in order to cover up their stories. This, of course, resulted in Project Rainbow being frozen, and while a major breakthrough had been made, there was no guarantee that humans would be able to survive further experiments. It's interesting what happened to two crew members who started running at the start of the experiment. They jumped off the ship and started swimming, but when they reached land, they found themselves not in the harbor of Philadelphia, but on Long Island, New York, 40 years later in 1983. Their names are Duncan and Edward, later known as Al Bielek Cameron. The reason is that the Project Montauk experiment was taking place at the same time, and the two experiments were connected. According to Al Bielek, there are 4 biofields on planet Earth, and all 4 come together at a peak every 20 years on August 12th. At these very moments, a sufficiently strong energy is created, with which a hyperspace world field is created, which causes the ship Eldridge to slip, if that is what we can call it, in space in 1943. Dr. John von Neumann, who led the experiment, was called to work on the Manhattan Project. He was associated with the atomic bomb, which became the weapon that ended World War II. Although it's not widely known, the extensive research that began with Project Rainbow was resumed in the late 1940s, precisely with Project Montauk, with a hole opened in the time-space continuum. Although the US Navy has explained that no such experiment took place, many researchers disagree, and they have their reasons. Documents from 1943 have been found which confirms that Einstein was in the service of the Navy Department in Washington. Witnesses began to appear and tell stories how they personally saw the Eldridge disappear. There even was a newspaper clipping from those times which talked about soldiers who got off the ship and melted right before the eyes of the witnesses. The Philadelphia experiment is an example of a story that just refuses to die. There is a mysterious aura about it that is constantly exploited. These words from Jackie's Valley, one of the most brilliant paranormal investigators, clearly demonstrate the skepticism of many scientists towards the story of the disappearance of the destroyer Eldridge. Now we're going to go back a bit to see how it all started. In 1912, a mathematician named David Hilbert developed several different methods of new mathematics. One of these is known as the Hilbert space. He developed equations for multiple realities and spaces. He met Dr. von Neumann in 1926 and shared his information with him. Von Neumann took many of the systems he learned from Hilbert and worked with them. According to Einstein, von Neumann was one of the most amazing mathematicians. He had the unusual ability to take abstract theoretical concepts from mathematics and apply them to situations in physics. Dr. Levinson, who developed Levinson's equations of time, also appeared in the story. He published 3 books which are now rare and almost impossible to find. Serious research on the issue of invisibility began in the early 1930s at the University of Chicago. Dr. John Hutchinson, dean at the time, was aware of the 145, the Montauk Project work of Dr. Kortenhauer, then an Austrian physicist at the university. Later, Nikola Tesla joined them. Together, they studied the nature of relativity and invisibility. In 1933, the Institute for Prospective Studies was formed at Princeton with Albert Einstein and John von Neumann. In 1936, the project developed even further and Tesla was appointed director. With Tesla on board, partial invisibility was achieved before the end of the year. Research continued until 1940 when a full test was made at the Brooklyn shipyard. The test was small and there was no one on board. The ship used was powered by generators from other ships connected by cables. At this stage, another scientist got involved, T. Townsend Brown, who is known for his practical ability to apply theoretical physics. By 1941, Tesla already had the full confidence of the rulers and they provided him with a ship. Tesla's famous transformers were also used on this ship. As the project developed, the inventor was cautious because he knew there would be staffing problems. Perhaps he understood it because of his ability to fully visualize his inventions in his mind and to always be several steps ahead of everyone else. In any case, Tesla knew that the mental state and bodies of the crew would be seriously affected and even injured. He needed more time to perfect the experiment and try to make it safe for the participants. Von Neumann, however, strongly resisted this and the two never got along. Von Neumann was an outstanding scientist, but he did not care for metaphysics, while, and for Tesla, it was something common, and he had created successful inventions based on his unique foresight. Part of what caused Tesla to give up was that during his experiments in Colorado Springs around 19,000, he said that an intelligence from another planet contacted him through constant signal messages. This happened in 1926 as well, when radio towers were erected at the Waldorf Astoria and his New York laboratory. He claimed to have received information that the experiment would lose people if things did not change. So, he needed time to invent a new equipment. Tesla's pleas for more time, however, were ignored. His government had a war to win and further delay was not in their plans. Nikola Tesla secretly sabotaged the operation in March 1942. It is not known whether he was fired or left alone.